All right, we're live. We're live in Tokyo and Guam and I think in Mexico.
You know, the one thing I've never done that is obviously going to be on people's minds coming up is these New Year's resolutions. I've
Let's
never
go.
done it.
You ever
Yeah.
done one, or like you've never? So like done as in like you've never set a New Year's
Yeah, I
resolution.
never set one. Yeah, like I feel
Okay.
like one for me personally that I really have a problem with. I feel like I'm like Lamar Odom, which could go different ways there. But I'm talking about
Yeah.
his candy addiction. He
Mm,
literally used to
that's
have
tough.
like jars of candy in his locker room, and I don't have that, but I had that at my house, not the locker room. But I have a candy issue. I think, but I've never made that as a resolution because I don't think I want to change.
That's fair. That's fair. It's nice of you to say that out loud. You know what I mean? It's the first step is just kind of understanding the problem, and that's it. But hey, by all means, it's still delicious. Just keep doing your thing. I don't
Absolutely.
want to enable an addict, but hey, get in there.
Have you
I'm the
ever?
same way.
Yeah, have you ever done a New Year's resolution? Or like,
I don't set them in stone. I don't lock them in and be like, here I am, and then look it on the wall. I'll just be like, this year, yeah, I'll do a little more, whatever. I don't know. Just pick something, but it doesn't. It's not like something I'm banging my head over like at the end of the year, like, oh, I didn't do it. Like I'm not that.
I should do better at fantasy football this next year. That should be my
I
resolution.
think that's what we all should do. If you're listening to this right now and you didn't make it to your fantasy football championships, first off, you're a degenerate, and I love it. And second off, yeah, I mean we're just kind of watching the football games to see what's going on for next season. But let's hit the intro. Let's get into the show, and this one should be. It's championship week, so we'll see. This is going to be a pretty spicy one. So let's see. So if you don't know what this is another fantasy football show presented by Sports Injury Central, SICScore.com. Lots of injury analysis going on. Obviously, we say it's our playoffs, it's our championship here for fantasy football.
Right.
But we're on the doorstep of the real life NFL playoffs. So there's a lot of jockeying, a lot of injury confusion out there of what's happening, and maybe people resting some players, hiding behind contract stuff. I don't know what's going on with the Raiders right now, but yeah, there's a lot.
I do. I know.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's just when it gets a little bit complicated when you're setting lineups in this time, because like you said, you have contractual stuff, you have incentives. Like Mike Evans, you need to get 3 more catches to get 1,000 catches for like whatever. So like they'll go hard on that. But then when they get their incentives, and if they're a playoff team, a lot of times they just go right to the bench. Like,
right.
Jalen Hurts need 5 more rushing yards to get 1,000 this year. He got 6 yards. All right, bye.
Yeah.
Bring in Minshew. So like. That's it's going to be difficult for fantasy, and it's also for betting too. When you're doing props,
that's tough.
It gets a little better at props because there's articles people release now, like contract, incentives, so you can look like, oh, Mahomes needs 10 more yards in the week 18 to do this, and then you can bet that. Usually they're trying to get those incentives. But the Derek Carr situation, we'll talk about that maybe. It's interesting. You're gonna definitely the whole offense takes a couple notches down, I would say, right, Justin? Jared Stidham, I know he's a company guy. We have a lot of the Raiders. I say we, I'm a fan, but a lot of the Raiders back end and coach are former Patriots, so they have that kind of system going on there. So.
Right. So just to tell everybody, if you're listening to this and you somehow have not realized it, Derek Carr not playing rest of the season. They said the last 2 games of the season, we're gonna look for some Stidham action.
He might not be a Raider anymore, just the way that they're setting this up. I saw him in a Colts jersey on Twitter earlier. I feel like Colts love to get these the Wentz's, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Carr would be like the youngest quarterback they've had in like a long time, like that they've actually gone out and grabbed. That's not over like 40. So that would be.
The Browns. Do you remember the Browns? Remember that jersey that guy had with the tape of every quarterback they've had for like 10 years? Like Colts are getting to that. Like they tried, and like Phillip Rivers is one of the ones we didn't mention. Like,
yeah.
But that Raiders offense in general, I mean, just keep on plugging in Jacobs. If you have Jacobs, you're probably in the championship. He was a low pick.
And you're not going to bench him, even if it's Stidham. You got to roll him out there. You got to expect he's going to get a lot of work. The Adams thing kind of scares me. That's scary.
Dynastically, we talk about that. You and me do a little more dynasty than Jacob, who's on vacation right now. Is that that diminishes his value a lot, because I don't see the Raiders don't have a huge high draft pick, so they're not getting the Bryce Young, the Strouds. Don't get Will Levis, please. Sorry. But there's not room for that, and there's so many holes on that team. I don't think they jumped a quarterback to fill immediately. I think this is like one of those teams you see that stopgap stuff. So when
Which
you see a
is, oh
stopgap,
boy. Yeah.
that's so bad for Devontae Adams because
He's got to be thrilled right now if that's the move that they're going.
you saw. I know that the Raiders have been very poor fantasy wise. Besides Jacobs, very poor in the pass game. But Adams has not been. Adams has been electric this year, and they have a very good connection with Adams. I mean, with Carr, because I have Fresno State days. So interesting to see what happens to Adams. But like this trade, I think if you can get Adams for cheap, maybe. But I don't. The quarterback situation is a huge question mark right now for that team.
Yeah, I would say a lot of people listening tell Devontae Adams owners that about last week and how it cost them a spot at the championship, because I was one of them. I have him in 2 leagues, and I'm on the doorstep, and the man put up 2 fantasy points for me. Oh. That's rough. That's sad to see on that. But let's get to the injury rundown. Obviously, some things that are going on based off of last week, and things that are kind of coming to a head right now in the championship week. So right out the gate, Tua Tagovailoa. That's a wrap. That's his. It's his second concussion, and I'll do that in air quotes.
Maybe, I was going to say maybe do the air quotes. Quite a little 3 in there, maybe, right?
That's his second concussion, as far on record, and this dude, he can't play the rest of the season. And honestly, like we will start talking more dynasty. I don't want to get too much into it today, but we'll go into the Tua dynasty talk probably a little bit in a couple weeks in the off season. But right now, I mean, Tua not in this offense. Teddy Bridgewater comes in. Really, now I don't think you're looking to play Teddy Bridgewater unless you're in a pinch and really need a quarterback. But as far as like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, like what is that doing to them?
I don't know. Bridgewater. Last time Bridgewater played, he did sustain one of them. I just think they both can't have good games anymore. You know, and then Mostert and Wilson. That run game is. I think Mostert's been playing well, but I don't know. They have to rely on that more. And I think if you rely on Mostert, that's not going to work. Tyreek has been so electric, though. I think he does somehow. It's like 7 catches, maybe 70 yards a game now.
So many yards he's got right now. Like him and Justin Jefferson, which I think Justin Jefferson's winning this battle by a wide margin now. But at first, it looked like they were both going to go over 2K, and it was like insane. So,
well, remember the Tyreek catch he had, last game? Remember it was like a 50-yard pass. He's not going to get those again. He's going to get little dumps, and he's going to have to yak it out, right? So that's diminished his value a lot there. Waddle too. Waddle's a more deep threat Hill because Tyreek Hill has a wider route tree, right? So he's able to do different things,
right.
All that. Waddle relies a lot more on the deep pass a little bit. Like you saw the 84-yard burr he had. That's not going to happen as much with Bridgewater. I think Bridgewater is one of the better backup quarterbacks that we have. But
yeah, you could definitely do worse than Teddy Bridgewater. And again, like you said, he's already stepped in before for some other reason. Maybe he got a concussion earlier in the season. I don't know. Maybe a couple Tua did.
Well, yeah. So no,
yeah, everyone's. It's like that's like you're the quarterback of the Dolphins. You get hit in the head. That's what it is.
Well, I was talking to the doc about it earlier. I'm pretty sure about 50% or more starting quarterbacks have got hurt this year out.
Yeah,
I don't know if you agree on that.
That sucks.
We were talking about the Carr situation because I'm like, Carr in those 2 games, there's a pretty decent chance he gets hurt just on the way things are going this year. But yeah, the Tua thing is crazy. You can even read stuff from the medical standpoint. You shouldn't have 3 concussions in one singular year, let alone 3 concussions in a career. You know what I mean?
There's gonna be more conversation, personal, like to him directly about like what.
That's why I think they're fighting happening on this 2 and 3 line, because the difference between 2 and 3 concussions in 1 year is massive. So like I see why they're fighting this, because like you could see someone be like, dude, he's had 3 concussions in 1 year. That should, like you said, that should be an automatic bye-bye. You know what I mean? Like you're not supposed to have 3 concussions in a singular career. So no, he needs to talk with stuff. I saw other people saying like he should get suspended for not saying anything. Like concussions are so crazy. He self-reported.
What he needs is the Welker helmet. He needs like the Wes Welker like dome helmet. Like he needs like the Brian Robinson like big cap helmet.
And it's not like you got jack play, right? I remember the first.
It was simple.
It was simple. The second one he got when he had to go to the hospital.
Okay,
that was a whiplash. That looked like it hurt a lot. But the first one, it was very, we saw Brian Hoyer going IR this year for a concussion. That one didn't seem like a lot either. It's just like, it doesn't take a lot for these things to happen. And if medically you can look it up, if you've already had one, the chances of you getting another are they're there. So then the fact that he's had 2 to 3, if we want to say that range, the chances are more and more. That's why he's gone into protocol every other game, right? Like,
it's gross to look at. It doesn't feel good knowing that he had a concussion at some point in that game. Obviously, the way that game ended between the Packers and Dolphins, what was going on in the end of the game. He was just turning the ball over like crazy. Was that because he was operating with a concussion? Who knows? I don't know. That's obviously a lot going on there. But
about that situation too, Justin, is that I think people didn't even really know. They saw him playing bad at the end of the game, and then they found the video later.
Yeah,
no one. Like if he would have played well in the second half, I'm not sure many people would have known that until he self-reported on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Monday, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that he played so poorly, it opened the door to go through
everyone's looking. They're like, "What's the problem here?"
And then they saw a clear play where his head get whiplashed in the end. And you're like, "Oh, that's where it was, right?"
Yeah, so. and that's obviously going to be another factor of why it's hard to say he's going to come back this season. Like even in the playoffs, whatever. It's just like the highlight. Like they're literally just going to be hunting for this. Every time he gets touched, it's going to be this like big front page news, and it honestly it should be for his sake. He shouldn't be out there. I mean, he needs to cool it off. But let's transition to the Philadelphia Eagles situation. They lost offensive lineman Lane Johnson, abdominal tendon. What was it? We did a rupture.
Yeah, it's an abdominal tendon rupture. It's kind of similar to a core muscle surgery. So that's when all the way underneath.
Yeah, that's rough. Right? That doesn't sound good.
Especially from offensive lineman, you're using that lower, doing that. Yeah. So the crazy thing about him, he is one of the toughest players I've ever seen in my life. Like just watching him play. He had an ankle injury a couple years ago. He barely could stand. He actually had the rest of the season he left because he gave out on him. Like he is one of the toughest offensive linemen. He's not going to have surgery. He's going to prolong it to the offseason, which is nuts. So he's just going to
he's going for it. He's ready. He wants that ring. Yeah.
This is like when you see a team that's a 13-2, whatever, you got to pump the brakes. And
they call that risking it for the biscuit, and the biscuit being that championship ring. So obviously that's going to be an issue moving forward. And probably another factor in maybe Jalen Hurts getting kicked down the road again, another one. I mean, obviously they lost to the Cowboys, but he could potentially play Week 17. Is he? I don't know, where do you think that's going to fall?
Week 17 seems weird. Also, the fact that you don't have your all-pro right tackle,
that's tough. That might factor it.
You might even keep them together. The one negative factor on this is that he has almost a 5-week span when the first playoff game happens. If he doesn't play at all the rest of the season, that's too much. That's going to make you rusty. You're not, that you need to be in the flow. That's even like the Derrick Henry. We'll go to him later. I just don't. I understand the situational stuff, but you shouldn't be. I think you just need to. His injury. I don't know if he can play. He can play, but he obviously they want to play these games.
Yeah,
they're good games. I'm not saying they're bad. Like I understand what they're doing, but if he doesn't play at all the rest of the season. There is I did see there is a little plan for him to throw a couple passes in the middle of the Week 18 game if he can play, just to because you really, really don't want that big gap with no play.
Right, for sure. That's going to be, especially if you get that first round bye, that's definitely going to be an issue for sure.
And that's also the crazy part too, because they're kind of close to losing that after having the bye.
Yeah, Vikings could do it.
Just creeping a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting.
We'll see how that plays out. Obviously, that affected a lot of people this week too, myself included. Where Jalen Hurts is another one of those players that got you there, and they were gone. Right, they're gone. When you needed them the most, they disappeared, and then you had to start Gardner Minshew, which actually wasn't horrible. Minshew was all right, fantasy wise. If you filled in with the backup for Jalen Hurts, that's fine. If for whatever reason you transition to what's up, he did perfectly fine. That's amazing. That's good.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Lamar Jackson with the Ravens. I know we talked about if you listen to the Pro Football Doc podcast, we talk about this, and he kind of broke it down. Was like there's no real incentive for him to be pushed back in Week 17 when all the game that really matters is Week 18.
Yeah, it kind of surprised me a little bit because I did think he's a little worse on topic too because he's going to have so much gap in not playing too going into the playoffs, right? But he's a situation more that he needs to be 100% healthy to get on the field. Jalen, at least, you can get the injection and play through it and eventually get healthy, recovering, as time progresses. But Lamar needs that recovery for that knee.
So you're telling me mobile quarterbacks need their kneecaps, just their
they
knees
need
in general.
Healthy kneecaps. Yeah, they do,
right.
Yes.
That's
key for him. That you've seen the way he is. Like the Jalen Hurts game. Remember that one? I think it was 2 or 3 games before he got hurt. He had 300 yards passing, 2 interceptions, but then he ran for 3 touchdowns. That's the kind of stuff Lamar Jackson can do, right? So he needs his legs. Tyler Huntley, I know there's a lot of stats saying the offensive is bad. It's 100% true.
But they're winning more than they're losing.
Exactly. They're winning, and that's prolonging it because that's you can play chicken. You can basically be like, oh, Lamar Jackson, you're almost ready. Oh, Tyler Huntley won. Let's play chicken again till next week.
Yeah.
Tyler Huntley again. So like you said, this game doesn't mean a lot. The Bengals, I think it's right. The Bengals game, Week 18, is a massive.
That's going to be pretty huge. And potentially, if Huntley can pull off the win, that game could be for the division. So that's going to be major.
And that's what Doc's key point was, is that they're playing for Lamar's health in the playoffs, not the little division title. Get the T-shirt and then lose in the playoffs.
Yeah, you want to be healthy. Yeah, the division title is not as cool as being healthy, which obviously is a big factor. The shirt is cool. The shirts are cool too.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about Derrick Henry before we get into dudes and duds from last week. Derrick Henry just popped up right before we started recording. Injury reports out, doubtful for this game this weekend. And obviously, Doc did a couple videos on it. You can follow us if you're watching the video here on our YouTube channel, Sports Injury Central. You can watch that video, get a little deeper insight from Doc about what's happening there in Tennessee. But it's looking like freaking Derrick Henry, which is a major fantasy player, is probably not rolling out on championship week, which is going to be scary.
What makes me more, I would be angry if I was someone that had him. Number
That's
one,
scary. Yeah.
He can play through this. So that's what's really frustrating. But we just talked about what matters more. And this game means nothing to Tennessee. They could lose this game and still fight for the division in Jacksonville next. Or is it in Jacksonville, I believe?
I think so. Yeah. I have to check that out.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm right. Whoa.
No, I'm right. I'll take it. No.
In Jacksonville. So like that, it didn't make sense for him to play. Doc was even saying you can kind of like, everybody in the league is like 85 to 90% kind of hurt a little bit, right? Like you got a little knee knock, you got a little elbow knock. So you could just walk in and be like, if you knew the plan was to not to not play him, he could just walk in and be like, oh, my hip hurts a lot. Like, you know, so like that's what happened. We looked at the game film. We didn't see any issues with him. So this is just about playing for the title. And this is a team that I'm kind of like skeptical about this move. I know it makes sense. And I know Doc will always, like he did with Lamar Jackson on the podcast, he always makes too much sense, but it's just like, they're so bad, right?
Right.
It's injured. It's not, I'm not saying like, oh, talent wise, they're going for the division title. So like they're a decent team.
They also have the Ryan Tannehill situation. That's like, he going to be back on week 18? That still remains to be seen. You know, that's going to be a tough task. So they're all trying to gear up for the week 18 game.
Yeah, you got that ankle surgery, which I already thought was odd, middle of the season. Like you're fighting for a title. Like, but Malik Willis, he's going to be by himself. Robert Woods has been inadequate all year with ACL tear recovery. Traylon Burks, not yet. AJ Brown, right?
No, he's not AJ Brown yet, but he can ball at someday. But
watching AJ Brown even on the Eagles, he's a different animal. Like instead of, I know you wanted to trade him and get something that's decent, you more lost. That's why their GM got fired. I think it was funny too, because I remember he got fired right after the Eagles game where AJ Brown went off against
right. That's embarrassing. Yeah.
So he's just like, here's your stuff you did bad live. Watch it. All right, bye bye.
Yeah, but, we'll talk a little more about Titans potential replacements for who's going to be out in our leftovers. Our leftovers are light today, but it's because it's championship week and these leftovers.
Not everybody's eating. Not everybody.
You may need you got if you need these guys, it's going to be scary for you in the championship. But real quick, let's get into dudes and duds from last week, and then we'll dive into that. So,
dudes and duds.
Let me just start out with mine because this has been one of the more shocking revelations at the end of this football season.
He's an injury, like 6-score, like little idol, right? We talked about
I'm talking about Cameron Akers, or as you know him, Cam Akers. 23 carries, 118 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 catches, 29 yards. Absurd fantasy game. If you had the stones to throw him in there, obviously he's kind of been relevant the last few weeks, and he absolutely backpacked your team to the championship if you wrote him out there last week. Unbelievable turnaround from what looked like this dude wasn't even going to be playing football for the Rams ever again, and then all of a sudden he's like, "No, I'll just come back and then I'll just win a couple people some fantasy championships."
Or take people out, right? Because
eliminate. Imagine being eliminated by people like the people who dropped him in the beginning of the season that drafted him in like the 3rd, 4th rounds, hated the pick. threw him away, and only to have him destroy you at the end of the year. That's
I have
amazing.
2 teams that I got him late because I was like, oh, might as well. RB dead zone. I was trying to figure stuff out. Got more wide receivers, and I definitely eliminated 2. I was out of the playoffs because it's hard to makers and be a playoff team. But unless you scoop them like you did, which is smart. Yeah. But I was like, let me hold on to him, right? But yeah, I eliminated a couple people that I shouldn't have, with him in it. But yeah, he's something also. We talk about dynasty too. He's an interesting case. It seems the backfield. I know Kyron's there, but I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not really sold on him yet.
Okay, so Kyron Williams experiment. If you've listened to us for the whole season, it's not there, guys. Not right now, at least. But the hype is gone.
He's a little small, but he's got it. He's got good games, so we'll figure it out. But I think Akers has that backfield next year. So if he can continue, this is also the first or the second complete year off the Achilles tear. When he came back last year, he was barely there.
It was bad. It was gross.
This was, I guess, like maybe his first full season back. So second year back, full season, I would expect more. That offense is going to be interesting, though. Matt Stafford did say in his him and his wife's podcast that he isn't retiring, but I'm not trying to take that grain of salt.
I did hear that, and I was like, oh, that's nice to hear. All right, so yeah, then you got to figure out what his plan is with his issue, which is a whole other story.
He does need to get the back surgery then, though.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, like that was the one thing Doc was saying is that if he doesn't get back surgery, then it would be like, all right, he's kind of leaning towards not playing, right? But if he does want to play, that opens stuff up. That's a better offense. So many injuries, right? They're going to get Kupp back, Robinson back. Like this is an interesting team to look at next year.
But will Aaron Donald be there? That's the thing. He was already mulling it. Like, is he really going to do this again?
I'm like holding a kid's toy. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
I don't think he will. He barely was last year. I don't know how they got him back this year because like they didn't have anything. Like I was just reading about them when the first year started. Like I don't know, they had the same team, but the drive wasn't there, right? They all got what they wanted. So he really wanted to leave, and McVay did too, I think, when we were reading like rumors and stuff. So like if you really want to leave and then you bring me back, how much am I in it? Like what did you convince me? Like besides, they probably threw him an extra. I think they gave him a better contract, threw him extra.
I'm sure he got some good money to come back. And granted, he's like one of the greatest of all time. So yeah, it's going to be fine. Like, but yeah, speaking of greatest of all time, I'm not saying JJ Watt is, but he's up there, definitely up there, and he's now retiring.
They're in the same bracket, Watt and Donald, absolutely.
Yeah. They terrorized the league together for like a decade plus. So yeah, that's pretty impressive. Get to your dude right now. Let's see where we're at.
All right, my dude is Dante Foreman. So he's been a dude all year for me. There's multiple leagues that I drafted him late in the like 20th round because I didn't really, CMC was always that weird stuff. I didn't expect him to trade. That's crazy. Changed the whole season for me. When you get stuff like that, that's huge. People that did with Jeff Wilson, that was key. When Mitchell went out, so like getting these little RPs at the end were massive. You got a guy that you can get in the 21st round. That's the key part of that team. Also, but don't say anything wrong about Chuba Hubbard. Awesome game as well.
They both had amazing games. It was like, I don't know what happened to the Lions, but they were just like the floodgates opened and it was all gone. Yeah.
But Foreman, 165, 7.9 yards a carry, which is awesome. He's not a speed guy. He's a burly.
No, he's a banger. Like
8 yards a carry. Like he's bulldozing you, right? So
yeah.
The TD. I'm just like, this is definitely biased a little bit because he helped me out so much this year. Just having like, all of a sudden, like I think it was like week 5 or 8, whenever in that range.
He took over and he pummeled the Falcons for a few games, but there were duds in there. There were a couple dud games where you're like, this is crazy. Like we're talking like under 1 fantasy point the week before this, which actually led me to benching him for Zach Moss, which I was very sad about as I was watching Deonta Foreman just annihilate, and then I realized, luckily, this is where I'm trying to make peace. The guy I was playing demolished me by like 80 points, so that didn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You have to.
So I'm like, all right. But I felt like an idiot and I hated myself for it. But either way, I mean, Zach Moss actually was serviceable for people who slid him in. Like he got maybe double digits in PPR.
He looked better than he ever did on the Bills ever. Like you had like 5-6 yards of carry. Like he's a plotter on the Bills. He looked
not as good as 165 and a touch though, sadly. So dud last week. We're talking about another disappointment on the doorstep of championships. People who have ridden the wave of Justin Fields, probably pretty disappointed with what happened with him. 15 for 23, 119 passing yards. He did throw 1 touchdown. This is when it gets gross because this is when it comes just not even like a week or two after being asked about the quarterback rushing record and if he was going to chase it. He literally came out and said, "Yeah, 100%. I can attain that, and I'm going for it." This is his going for it. 7 carries, 11 yards, and that is it.
When I hear someone say that as a defensive
Oh.
coordinator, I'm just going to QB spy the hell out
The
of
whole game. Yeah,
The
that's
whole
fair.
game.
That made me so sad.
It's like you see 7 carries. If you see the other games, he gets 7 carries. He's at least at 40 to 35 yardage, right?
Yeah.
If he's getting 11 carries, he's barely getting 2 yards. Like he's not even getting 2 yards a carry.
No.
And that means that you're getting spied on, and that means he was done the entire game. They had him locked down.
Just do that every game, defensive coordinators. There it is. There's your blueprint.
There's the blueprint. So easy. Come on.
Yeah. Oh my
But
gosh.
no, I had him too. I was eliminated playoffs last week, but he didn't hurt me. But he did hurt me.
I'm not mad at him. I'm just disappointed. I like next year. I'm still in on Justin Fields. I think he's still going to be somebody who could blossom
I think
into.
it was smart to be on this year because this year it was just like, oh, is he going to be good? And then you jumped on that train. You were right. And
Got to, yeah. It was, but the way this season started, horrible. You thought he was the worst quarterback of all time. Like it was bad.
My Scott Fish team, I had Prescott and Fields. So Fields was terrible, and then Prescott got hurt. So I was rocking a bad Fields and Davis.
Oh man, that's scary. Yeah,
I got to the 4th round. I just got eliminated last week, but like
it was quite the run though. I mean, the run with Justin Fields was fun, and I'm excited to try to do it again next year, 100%.
Absolutely, it was so super fun. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, you're dud.
My dud. He's had a very poor year this year, but 5 targets, 1 catch, 6 yards for Adam Thielen. That's pretty terrible. You have the freaking alpha dog on the side of you going off. You would think there's a little bit there. I mean, Osborne has better games now. I think it's a certain point that he might be done there.
He's cooked. I'm calling it. I'll fork him. I'm putting the fork in, which sounds really weird.
Like a low value buy this year because it was like, not too much, but like enough. Like he was in a good passing offense, whatever. But like this year, he kind of showed that he's barely a good 3. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know what his contract is. I'm kind of looking it up right now, but I'm curious if this is probably it for him.
That's what he's playing like for me.
Oh, there's a potential out, but they don't. It's 16 mil dead cap. I don't think they want to do that.
That's not good for them.
He got a nice contract though.
Yeah, well, he had 3 straight years or 2 straight years of double-digit touchdowns. He's a threat. But you had Thielen as a value play. You played him as a streaming option or whatever. I know you weren't putting too much stake in him, but like he crushed you, and he's probably crushed you the whole season.
Yeah, he's somebody that his expectations will be on the floor next year, and then I feel like we'll be talking about him on the waiver wire pickup or something to be like, oh, he's kind of back. Like he'll have one good game, and you'll be like, oh, Thielen, we back on the menu.
Like
no,
the AJ Green route, you know.
Yeah, no, well, that's that whole man. There was some dark times with AJ Green, man. He dropped off. All right, let's get into the leftovers and just talk about some matchups this week and players you could possibly throw in that may be on your waiver wire right now.
The leftovers.
So it's championship week, like we said. We got a couple of people 8% owned right now in 12-team leagues on Sleeper. So take that however it is. I mean, depending on where you're at, if it's a deeper league or not, these people may not be there. But Greg Dortch had a pretty solid game last week, and honestly, he's been kind of flashing pretty decent talent through the entire season with all the wide receiver injuries and suspensions that the Cardinals have been doing. But Greg Dortch is somebody that, again, we're talking like people on the waiver wires right now. The waivers have already run, but if this guy's on your waiver wire, he could be a potential like fill-in for somebody who may or may not be playing. Like if we hear all of a sudden Devontae Adams, he's also not going to play for I don't know whatever reason that might be, but I doubt it'll happen. But just you never know. Anything could happen. Greg Dortch on your waivers, he's somebody that could help you out, I think.
No, Dortch is good. There's no more there, right? AJ Green we just talked about, he's dust. DeAndre Hopkins, that's one of the worst games I've ever seen in my life. That's also someone that it could have been a dud. 1 catch, 6 yards, I believe, killing people's matchups. But there's passing game. There's opportunities for him there. Dortch has played well. He obviously has some kind of connection with Colt McCoy or McSorley.
Either one. Yeah, either one. I mean, he's like you said, he's been kind of on the same rung as them as they've been practicing. So, like, there's got to be something there. A little familiarity is how you say that word. One more, and obviously we just talked about it at the beginning of the injury rundown. Derrick Henry, very likely not playing. People are probably rushing. I mean, it seems like if a starting running back gets a workload, but it doesn't look pretty gross with Malik Willis and what's happening there in Tennessee. But if you're willing to risk it, Hassan Haskins, 8% owned, got to think he's going to get a pretty decent workload. And I don't know who else is there. Is it Hilliard still there? Dontrell Hilliard might still be there.
Yeah, he's the pass catching back more, so he's definitely there. But no, it's a Hassan Haskins territory this week. He's the pure runner too as well, so he's going to be taking all the actual like Derrick Henry snaps.
Yeah, so we're looking like a deep flex Hassan Haskins on your waiver with the news of Derrick Henry. Honestly, even if you're not planning on starting him, right? If you're listening to this right now and you're playing in the championship or even a third place game, right? Third place game sometimes still you get your money back. Not that we're playing fantasy football for money. I don't do any of that. But
Hilliard's on IR, by the way. So it's just
okay. Well, then there you go. 100%. Hassan Haskins, scoop him up just to protect yourself, even from somebody else just scooping him up and having the need to fill him in. I think that's a little defense never hurt anybody. So yeah, absolutely. I think that might be the play. I don't know who else we'd even have at this point. That would be relevant enough to start. I mean, there's probably some people, but it depends on how deep your league is. But yeah, that's where we're at with leftovers. It's pretty shallow.
It's shallow, but yeah, like we just talked about, there's not that many people eating right now, so there's not much cooking.
Yeah, I mean, the holidays are coming to a close, and the leftovers are getting thin or molding, and this is it. This is your moldy leftovers.
Sure.
Let's get shootout and draw. Let's look ahead to Week 17, Championship Week. Here's some of the biggest games from a point standpoint that you might want to dabble in, whether it be DFS or your fantasy. So let's get in there.
It's some shootouts and drafts.
So I'm looking at this right now, and I can't believe it. We have a game over 50 points, right? This is crazy.
Well, this is the Lions team that can't stop rushing to face one of the best rushing. I know he had 11 yards, but he has a pretty prime advantage over this week.
So Bears versus Lions, 52.5, definitely the highest point total of the week. Gonna be fun. I'm hoping it's fun.
Yes. The next one is Bills Bengals. That's probably the best game of the whole weekend.
Just from like a pure football standpoint, I think yes, 100%. That's going to be good.
Allen Burrow, like that's an elite matchup. It makes sense. It's points, but both defenses are a little iffy too. Tre'Davious White's been playing okay recently, but Awuze's out, number one corner for the Bengals. So it makes sense. That's a high one with the elite talent that's on the field.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the weather now, because last week it seemed like every matchup I was like, what's the weather? Because it was just such a crazy week across the entire country for weather. I think we're kind of going back to normal, at least whatever normal might be. But it looks like around the 50s in Cincinnati, which honestly this time of year is pretty nice. So
nice.
Yeah, that's gonna be a good one. And then this is what I'm looking for. Packers versus Vikings. Obviously, I'm a Packers fan. If you've listened to the show at all. I don't know, man. I'm a little upset that they're giving me hope. The point total is 48.5.
You can win out, bro. That's awesome. What do you mean?
I'm not upset that I'm just can't believe I'm back here, right? Because I had come to terms. I'd written them off. I was ready to watch other teams and just be like, let's see what happens. All of a sudden, Packers are like, no, man, we're still here. Hey, we might still do this.
Yeah.
There's a little rumbling now, and I'm like getting my hopes up, and I just don't want to be disappointed. But we are on like a heater right now. I don't know what's going on. It's crazy.
I don't think the Vikings have too much to play for. Apparently, different from you. They're trying to lock up, trying to fight for the bye too, right, with the Eagles.
Yeah, and I don't know why I wrote this Packers versus Vikings. It's Vikings versus Packers. They're in Lambeau for this game, so it's going to be interesting.
Key for you. That's key for you, Packers. Yes.
That's going to be big. Obviously, that's somewhere where the weather actually would play a factor. And obviously, the Vikings are a dome team. So I'd be curious to see. Now I'm going to look up and check what the weather is for that game. Oh, yeah. Well, as you can imagine, it's cold. We're talking.
It's cold, yeah.
Well, that's still 28 degrees as the low. Not bad. It's like that's something. I feel
3 degrees for low, above freezing, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not terrible there. I think you could, but they factor that into the point totals. 48.5, still a high point total in cold weather. We're gonna see something, right? I don't know. That's gonna be an interesting game to watch. There's a lot of good games. Period. Like as far as matchups this week. But yeah, if you're fantasy championship wise, you want to have players that are involved in this that are actually playing. Yep. And hopefully not just sitting out to try to, their playoffs. How dare they think about their playoffs as opposed to your fantasy playoffs?
It's rude for them to do that.
It's absolutely disrespectful. But anything else for the greater good? This is obviously I don't have a championship team. I'll just say it full disclosure. I'm not in it. I'm out.
Yeah. I don't
This
either.
is a first year in a long time that I don't have a team in the championships. It makes me making me kind of sad right now.
I'm not happy about it. Yeah.
So here's what we do. We go to the drawing board, right? We're gonna spend the entire offseason laying the blueprint out, and we're gonna come back next year.
Do we need to go
And
back to the drawing board though? Because like if this is the first year in a while, then I'm not changing anything.
I'm not gonna change too much, but I'm gonna give off the vibe of like I'm coming back reloaded. You know what I mean? Like when a team disappoints, it's the redeem team. That's what I want. We're coming back as the redeem team next year, and we're gonna get those chips. But if we appreciate you guys obviously listening to us throughout the NFL season. We will be back next week to obviously recap championship week and give a kind of launch into the offseason. We'll be talking a little more dynasty in the offseason as well for people who are just can't get enough of fantasy football, which I love a good dynasty league. Dynasty talk is a lot of fun. So be sure to stick with us through that if you're into that. And yeah, the football season never actually stops, right? I mean, there's a lull for a little bit, but there's a lot of news, a lot of stuff, a lot of new draft players. There's so much to talk about. So we'll be excited to talk about that moving forward. But good luck to everybody in your fantasy championships, and I'm so sorry to everybody who didn't make it. But all right, we'll see you guys next week.